Roast chicken is one of my all-time favorite meals. Today, we are making a chicken ballotine. Basically means chicken with all of the bones taken out of it. Sounds complicated, and it requires some knife skills, but we can do it in our home kitchen. We're gonna stuff it with a bit of spinach and cheese. We're gonna roast it to perfection. We're gonna make a pan sauce in about an hour. Let's go. So we're using a whole chicken. We're gonna take all of the bones out of it. Sharpen my knife. Don't actually need the knife too much for this, but we're gonna start off with the knife, taking off the wings. Set those aside for either another recipe or for stock. The wishbone is the next thing that needs to come out. It's just this U-shaped bone that's in here. Slide your knife along the sides of it, and then using your hands, you can pop the wishbone out. Be careful, it's often broken. If it is, just take out the little pieces, making sure not to cut yourself. Now this is the only time that we're going to cut the skin. Just glide our knife along the back of the chicken, making sure to go down and all the way through. Turn it so that we're focused on where the wings used to be. If you just sort of tilt where the wings were, you'll see where the bone connects to the body. There's a little bit of a seam that appears. We slide our knife along that seam, the bone should disconnect from the body. Once it's disconnected, you'll be able to basically pry open or pry off the meat from the carcass. Pull until you reach the oyster. That's that sort of round bit right there. It's usually a bit of a different color. And do that on both sides. This might take a bit of force, but try and avoid using your knife here. It should pry off relatively easily. Once you find the oyster on both sides of the chicken, flip it over to the other side. Keep gently peeling until almost everything is disconnected. Basically, the entire front is disconnected at this point. We need to focus on the legs. We're going to use our knife and cut around that oyster we just talked about, leaving it connected to the legs. You should be able to disconnect where the leg connects to the body. Now you can really easily pull the carcass off. We've got a mostly boned out chicken. All we've got to do is deal with these leg bones that are still attached. You should be able to grab onto the top of the leg bone and then just slide your knife around the top, creating a better handle, and then using the back of your knife, scrape down the bone. Once you hit the knee, cut around the sort of knee joint, and then continue to scrape until you get to the very bottom. I'm going to use the back of my knife to break the bone, leaving a bit of a nub there. That's going to help the chicken stay together when we roast it. Same thing on the other side. Hold on, scrape until you hit the knee bone. Once you hit the knee bone, cut along, detaching the meat from the bone, and then continue to scrape until you get most of the way to the bottom. You just want to leave a bit of that nub using the back of your knife, and you've got 2 leg bones. So the leg bones are out. We've got these little wing bones that were left. Exact same technique. We're just going to hold on to the top. They're a little smaller, so just be a little bit careful here. You should be able to just use your hands at this point. No even knife scraping required. Just cut out where the bone sort of attaches, where you can grab it, and then use your hand to sort of push the meat right off of the bone, and it should just easily slide out. Only thing that's left is this sort of piece here. We can use the tenderloins of the chicken that are still attached to our carcass to fill in that spot. You can just use your hands here if you want, but of course you can use a knife. Slide the knife alongside where it connects to the breastplate, and then just use your fingers to detach it. It should come off pretty easily. You can do the same thing on the other side. I'm doing it without the knife here so you can see what that looks like. There we go, we got a tenderloin. Make sure to save this piece for stock. The tenderloin has this little tendon in it, so we can just remove that by holding onto it, scraping our knife. We don't want to eat that, so throw that in the garbage. Back to our chicken. Place the tenderloins in that piece where there was no meat. I'm just going to fill in by where the neck is by making a little incision, folding that piece of meat down, and we've got a boned out chicken. I'm going to make a really simple stuffing with just spinach. I'm going to start off on medium heat, add a little bit of olive oil to the pan and let that heat up a bit. Add the spinach right into the pan and move it around a little bit so everything is coated in the olive oil. A bit of chopped up garlic and a bit of salt and pepper, and basically cook this until the spinach is wilted and the garlic is lightly browned. This is going to take about a minute, maybe 90 seconds. Not very long. The spinach is going to reduce by a fair bit as the water cooks out, and that is basically all we need to do for this part of the stuffing. Back to my chicken. I'm going to season this lightly with a bit of salt and a bit of fresh cracked pepper. My spinach mixture has cooled slightly. I'm going to add that right on top of my chicken. Don't forget to add the spinach where the bones were in the dark meat. You can just stuff that right in there. It's a great way of making sure the spinach is all the way through your chicken. I'm going to add a bit of cheese. This is Swiss cheese or Emmental cheese. Same idea, just spread that all over, making sure to get some in the legs as well. Last but not least, I've cut up a bit of bread. One of the best parts about this recipe is you can add whatever you want. If you want to use rice, use rice. If you want to use beans, use beans. Once everything's added, we're going to roll the chicken up so it starts to resemble a chicken that still has the bones and the carcass left in it. Roll it onto its back so the breast side is up, and then we're going to truss this. We left those pieces on the legs so that it's easier for us to tie this up. Basically make 2 knots on the bottom, tying the legs together, and then using a half hitch, pull it underneath the chicken, and then every inch and a half or so, basically create a new half inch and slightly tighten that. When you get to the end, flip over the chicken, adjust any of the string if it's not even, use that extra little piece of skin that's on the end, use that as a guide, and tighten each of our knots by going past, wrapping the string underneath, and then moving back towards the bottom of the chicken. When I get to the end, flip it over, tie it where you started, cut off the excess, and we have a fully boned out chicken that's ready to roast. I like putting this in a frying pan to roast it. You'll see why in just a few minutes. Season with a bit of salt, into the oven, 200 Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit. After about an hour, you have something that looks like this. Really nice and brown, really well cooked at this point, and we've got some juices that we can use to make a sauce. It's incredibly important that the chicken rests for 10 to 15 minutes, which gives us enough time to make our sauce. On to our stove. We're going to set this over medium heat. I'm just going to spoon out some of the excess fat that's in here. This is optional, just makes it a slightly nicer sauce. And I've got these little homemade stock cubes that I use. If you're interested in these, leave a comment and I'll show you how to make them in a future video. You could use chicken stock if you wanted to here as well. Bring it to a simmer. I'm gonna add a bit of thyme. Basically, we're just gonna let this reduce so it doesn't need to be really thick. It took me about 5 to 7 minutes until I got it to the consistency that I wanted. Strain out the thyme and any pieces that came off while we were roasting our chicken. Add a bit of butter, lemon juice, and stir that until it's incorporated. The sauce is still warm, so it's going to emulsify. You want something that coats the back of a spoon. Add a bit of parsley, and we are ready to butcher our chicken. String needs to come off. That should be pretty easy. Just cut all the string pieces, the little nubs that are there. You can even cut those off. You don't even need them at this point. I like cutting really nice, big, thick cuts. I get about 6 portions from this whole chicken that was about 2 kilos, 4 pounds or so. And look how nice that looks. You got really crispy skin. The stuffing looks really good and evenly distributed throughout the chicken. Set it on a plate. Add a bit of that chicken jus that we made, a little bit on the side, and you've got a really, really fantastic chicken dinner in about an hour to an hour and a half. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, really helps out the channel. Subscribe if you want to see more videos. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Do I have to make a winner chicken dinner comment? Super good.